So, even as a young child, we learn how to discriminate. What does discriminate mean?
Discriminate. Verb. Recognize a distinction. Differentiate.
So, we use our skills of discriminating to discriminate between one thing and another thing. In this example, an edible thing and an inedible thing. So, we know that we eat burgers and not mittens. Did you ever try to eat a mitten? That's gross. Okay, for example, there is a teacher here. Female. She is short and really adorable, and she has long, silky brown hair, and she has a great sense of style. What other characteristics about her? She teaches history. Which teacher am I talking about? I'll give you a chance to think about it. We talking about Miss Fingerhood. You's right. But we all know that there's another definition of discriminate.
Discriminate. Verb. Make an unjust or prejudicial distinction in the treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, sex, or age.
So sometimes we take these differences that we discriminate between us, and we treat each other differently because they're not like us, because they're the other, like in the song.
Speaking of another thing you might have done as a kid, like watch Sesame Street, you might have said the Pledge of Allegiance a million times.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I know some people aren't into saying the Pledge of Allegiance. For all Americans, liberty and justice for all, that's a lot of different kinds of Americans. There's all sorts of different ways to distinguish Americans from other Americans. What are some of the ways that we can discriminate? We have race, gender, disability, religion, age, size, class, economic status, health. There's so many different ways to discriminate. So intersectionality is the study of how two different forms of discrimination or oppression may meet. Intersectionality. Noun. The interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. Let's break that down. So what is, what is an intersection? Okay, so like Hamilton Road and 70, that is an intersection, and that's where the two streets come together. This term was brought to be by a lady named Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. So it's a relatively new term. She noticed that Black women face a different form of oppression than white women. Why is this? Well, because Black women have the racial component of discrimination and the gender component of discrimination. Intersectionality studies how says two things. It's a study of how these two or more forms of oppression may intersect, but it also says that all these conceptualizations of discrimination and oppression, like racism, ableism, sexism, transphobia, xenophobia, bigotry of all kinds, it says that these are all related, interconnected somehow. And I think that's important because a lot of times we tend to focus on one type of oppression, and that's because oppression in itself is a really big thing. But I think intersectionality is valuable because it says that all these forms of oppression may be related. And I believe if all of these forms of oppression are actually related, that means if we work to dismantle one form of oppression, we can perhaps, in so doing, be working to dismantle another form of related oppression, thus giving actual liberty and justice for all people. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty cool. Okay, let's look at another example of intersectionality. Let's talk about LGBTQ plus people of color who are young. Statistically, a lot of these people are homeless, are very poor, don't finish high school. A lot of them don't finish college. Why is this? Okay, if you're a person of color, I'll say black because I understand what that's like for obvious reasons. Within black culture, there are pockets of homophobia. So if you come out as lesbian, gay, anything along that spectrum other than straight, in a black household, that might not be met with the warmest arms. So that could result in you being thrown out. That also could result with not being able to make it to school on time. That may be result with you being poor because you don't have your familial support. We study intersectionality so that we can learn the entire picture of a person. We can learn about all the systems of oppression that might affect their day-to-day lives. So how can we use our intersectional study of Black trans youth to help them? I can think of a few things. It's really simple, but visibility is huge. A lot of times, some phobias that we have of people just come from a lack of visibility. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And increasing visibility among Black trans youth is huge because visibility means more familiarity. That means less unknown. That means less fear. That means less hatred. And that means less murder. We know that murder rates among Black trans youth are really high. And I feel like it can lead back to just a simple lack of visibility in some cases, only some. Otherwise, we can be active in supporting Black trans youth to help keep them off the streets, put some structure in their lives, help give them an education so that they can pursue their dreams and live a life that they're supposed to live, one filled with liberty and justice.